Welcome to C-Suite Sherpas, where we shine a spotlight on business experts and resources that you should know. I'm your host, Ron Partridge, and I'm excited today to have Jessica Katz, founder of Polylabor, with us. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Ron. Good to be here today.
All right, we're excited to talk about what you do. So, Polylabor helps companies achieve improved results through consent-based leadership development and coaching, and we're going to find out exactly what that means from Jessica right now. So, if you're ready, we'll jump in.
So, the concept behind consent-based leadership is really what I found over time is that people essentially suffer what I like to call post-traumatic job syndrome. And, there's a bit of people expect you to do things and you don't have any autonomy over the work you're doing. So, consent-based leadership really helps build an environment where leaders are asking for work instead of demanding work and negotiating timelines and negotiating outcomes and negotiating the purpose of the work that they're doing. So it becomes a collaborative conversation between leadership and individual contributors, and it essentially leads us to a higher engaged workforce, which leads us to higher KPIs.
That was always a challenge for me in my executive roles was employee engagement. How does it really help employee engagement? Like what drives that engagement specifically?
Well, we can pull from thought leaders like Dan Pink, who has a book on motivation, and one of his things in there are mastery, so the ability to get highly skilled at something, purpose, the ability to feel like I have an impact on something bigger than myself, and then autonomy. And autonomy is often the piece that's missing for that engagement. The ability to have choice over the direction of my career, the ability to have choice over how I grow, the ability to have choice on what I work with and who I work with, and even when I work in today's climate, essentially drives a much more engaged workforce where it feels more like a partnership and less like indentured servitude.
Do you have examples or case studies, and you don't have to name people or companies, but where you've actually helped somebody and it's really had a tangible impact when the employees really get engaged?
Yes, I definitely have case studies on this. If somebody wants some documented data on it, I would recommend Gallup's American State of the American Workforce Report, which talks all about the impacts of engagement. My favorite memory was coaching a director of business intelligence, and he couldn't get his employees to give creative ideas and solutions to problems. And I worked with him for a while, and he was a chatter. And I said, "Have you ever recorded a meeting that you've had with your employees?" And he's like, "No." I said, "What if you tried that?" And so he started there and he recorded and he's like, "No wonder I don't get any ideas. I take up all the air in the room." I was like, "Yep." And so we started working on how to take up the space in the room to really leave room for folks to engage. And what he saw was incredibly more excited employees, more interested in the topics they were talking about, creative problem solving, and they didn't do it alone. They didn't get his whole team together and they'd talk about it. And he just listened and asked good questions. And it shifted the whole context away from do as I say to let's solve this together. We saw an actual increase in their engagement surveys and in that team's productivity.
How do you know a leader's ready for this? And do you have to work to get the leader to a mind frame to actually do something and change like this?
It's honestly, people who aren't ready for this don't usually hire me. It's the people that are already noticing that they need to increase engagement, noticing that the climate is changing for the way workforces work. They are noticing the need for engagement. They're noticing a high attrition rate. They're noticing a lot of negative reviews on things like Glassdoor. And they're starting to see, oh, we have a problem. How can we fix the culture so that it gets better? That said, I sometimes get brought in to a leadership group that has been told to do this, and we have to do some, it's not convincing. I do a lot of seed planting, is the way I call it. It's a little bit more like gardening. And I plant a little seed and I let them think about it for a while and then see what germinates. And I plant a little seed again and I see what germinates. Sometimes it happens and there's like this magic moment, and sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's a few sessions and they have a magic growth, and sometimes I hear about it years later, like I was only with them for a year but I planted a seed and years later I get this message from somebody that's like, "I just want you to know today I got it. And I'm like, oh, great. So when the secret sauce works, when it really works, the leader has done a lot of work. The person who's brought me in has done a lot of work to get the buy-in already. And
Yeah,
once the buy-in's there and the motivation is there, people move because they want to move, right?
that's
It's
great. So, what do you say sets your business apart and your approach apart from others that may do very similar things?
I think the big differentiator for me is that I am really shifting business away from transactional relationships to relational relationships. I have a deep background in helping people communicate with one another, establish explicit agreements with one another, live those agreements, adjust those agreements. I like to say working with people is really like every other relationship. You have to nurture and care for it. And often what I'm doing is helping people learn how to do that, to nurture and care for the relationship and to really value humans as they are as whole complete entities. And I think that sets it apart. I get in and dig in to the human component.
What's the biggest challenge that industry faces right now, and how are you helping them tackle those challenges?
Well, right today, the biggest challenge that we're facing is that we just had an election, and the cultural climate of the United States just shifted away from diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion in what I'm working with. So we have a broad cultural climate that is very resistant to this move towards inclusivity and psychological safety and those sorts of things. However, I think the data bears it out that when they dig in, they see improved results. And if our organizations are smart enough to look at what's working and not what the climate is, I think that will get that movement. And there are certainly companies that do it. And I would say that the places you see it the most are more progressive types of industries. Tech, for example, is a place that you would see it the most. But it's happening in all industries that people are noticing, oh no, we have to change the way we work. That is the biggest challenge. Change is just hard and takes a long time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you see, you are right, we've had a bit of a seismic shift. How do you see this whole thing evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And how are you kind of staying ahead of the curve and helping your clients keep up with it?
Uh, well, the seismic shift started with the pandemic. It really set people to looking at work in a very different way. We essentially had this global freak out. And we all went to working from home and started to prioritize things that weren't our office. People have to really be enticed to do work now. It's not that they don't want to do work, because obviously they need to make money to live. That's a no-brainer. It's that do they want to work with you becomes the question. It's no longer does it have a soda machine and a break room and are you giving me free lunches every Friday? That was all sort of shallow surface goodies. Now it's really, can I get the kind of health insurance I want, work-life balance I want, those sorts of things. And that's going to keep going. The desire for that isn't going away just because the climate has shifted. The sea change event was the pandemic. Our elections in the United States are not sea change events. They happen every 4 years. We're going to have another
This is
one.
true. Yeah, you're exactly right. So, all right, cool. So, what I'd like to do is kind of shake it up a bit and do what we call lightning round. And the objective here is to kind of give our viewers a chance to get to know you a little bit on a different level, personally, not too personally, but
Okay.
a little bit personally. Okay. So I'll ask you just questions. You can fire answers right back. Ready to roll?
Ready. I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Coffee or tea?
T.
All right. Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Your favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
Time is the only commodity.
Hmm. Okay. Favorite movie or streaming series?
That's a big one. Let's go with Pleasantville. It's a movie that is really fantastic about sort of becoming.
All right. Nice. Favorite book?
That's like trying to pick my favorite child. I can't give you one of those.
Uh, one that was a good answer, by the way. One last question. It's a two-part question. One bucket list item you've already accomplished, and one bucket list item that you have not accomplished yet.
Well, I think starting my own business was a pretty big bucket list item that I have accomplished and seem to continue to be accomplishing, even though sometimes it feels a little bit like free fall. And the bucket list item I have yet to accomplish, I would like to for my retirement, get an RV and just cross country it all over the Americas. And that's, a couple decades away yet, but that is on my list of things to do. And even better if I can sort of compress those two and go a little bit RVing while I'm working.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I would love to do that, by the way. There's a lot of country to see, a lot of beautiful country to see.
It really is.
All right. The most important question that we have is if any of our viewers would like to collaborate with you or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to find me personally is on LinkedIn. There's also a contact form on my website, but find me on LinkedIn. I think my contact information has my email address on it, but if not, message me and we'll get connected. I encourage your listeners to want to connect and not to want to sell me something. That's the sort of piece of
So,
that.
and just for our viewers' benefit here, it's Jessica Katz, Katz. And then could you give us your website address?
Sure, it is polylabor.com.
Polylabor.com. Cool. Awesome. Any parting thoughts?
I don't think I have any parting thoughts.
It's been great talking to you, and I think your insights are very valuable and interesting, by the way. So I appreciate you being here and talking with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Ron. I appreciate it as well.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Bye.